Hello everybody, welcome back to JRE in a nutshell. I'm your host Rafa, and we are the only show online that shows you timestamps, sources, and all the subjects of the Joe Rogan interviews that happen on Spotify. So this week we have Duncan Trussell again. Man, that motherfucker is like Forrest Gump.
They invited me and the ping pong team to visit the White House. So I went again, and I met the President of the United States again.
It's crazy. He's been on like 4 times in the last 3 months. It's crazy. I have my own theories on why he comes on so often. We will discuss that during his part. So we also have this guy I never heard of. I don't know what he does honestly, but he is up to date into everything that's happening. AI, censorship. He knows a shit ton about conspiracies. So it's a very cool interview. It's the one we're timestamping. And also we have My Redemption. It's a couple of weeks late, but as I said, Tony Woods is on. And this actually proves that Joe recorded in 1 week enough podcast worth of 3 weeks, because we had the thing from last week with Brian Simpson where they're discussing the Titan. So I guess he was like on vacation for a couple of weeks, so he pre-recorded enough so he can release. And this probably means even that both Duncan Trussell's interview were recorded on the same day, because he was on a couple weeks ago as well. So we will discuss about what are my theories on why he's on so often. And yeah, otherwise, don't forget to stay until the quote of the week and share and like and subscribe, and let's get right to it. So let's start with the interview with Duncan Trussell. Amazing, obviously, as usual. This one is not so incredible or not so impressive like the interview that happened a couple weeks ago. We even are not timestamping at this time because there's another one that I find more interesting. But it's still Duncan Trussell. There's still a lot of inside information. And if you like all of this kind of insight, talking a lot about religion, then you're gonna love this interview. They speak a lot about cults this time. They speak about working out, about the idea or the consequences of having a cashless society. Joe goes really in depth, saying consequences about them, putting limits into how long even we can spend the money. Hey, you have this money, you have 24 hours to spend it. You cannot spend it in traveling, you cannot spend it in this, you cannot spend it in that. So a lot of control. We speak a lot about that. It's pretty interesting. As usual, there's religion involved. We speak about Jesus, the Bible, all of these old scriptures, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the origin of Christianity. As we know, this theory that it originated from psychedelics. So that's always interesting to hear, even if I heard like 20 million times. And they speak about gold diggers. Very, of course, controversial conversation because, yeah, if you call a woman gold digger, then you're misogynistic or whatever the fuck. But they have a really cool perspective. I do have a different perspective because they don't mention, they talk about the people that, the women that lie, and then they speak about how when Neuralink works, they speak about Neuralink also, and when Neuralink, we start working on Neuralink, then the gold diggers are just gonna disappear because you can read their minds that they're actually interested in the money and not in the person. But I disagree because if I would be 80 years old and I would be a billionaire, why not spend the time, my last years, with a 20-year-old, even if she's gold digging? I wouldn't give a shit. So that's the point. Like, people also underestimate the billionaire itself. He's the victim or whatever, but no, like, why? He's also taking advantage of the situation, spending his last years with the hottest chick alive or whatever. So I don't see the problem, but whatever. We talk about children being famous and the consequences of children being famous when they grow up. And we finish with the new Diablo. Duncan, he's a video game freak, so we speak about the new game, the new Diablo that's coming up. I think it's 4. So I'm not a big video game guy, but I think I know a little bit. So all in all, pretty cool interview, pretty interesting, funny, insightful as usual with Duncan, and I would give it 4 nuts. So definitely, if you have the time, go and check it out. So, and now let's move on to the interview with Tony Woods. As I said, a little bit late, but my prediction was I was not spreading fake news, at least, just a little bit late. So it was a pretty funny interview, quite chill, quite light, not much interesting. If you want to learn something, this is not the interview, but if you just want to enjoy and have fun, and there's a lot to laugh about, it's hilarious. They speak, of course, a lot about stand-up comedy, the beginnings. They know each other for over 30 years, so it's crazy how much stories they have with famous people that are now huge names back then, back in the day. So they speak also about conspiracies, the fires in Canada. There's some conspiracy about it, how they did it on purpose to burn some chemicals. I had no idea about this actually, so it just was interesting to know that there's something going on. Of course, this was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. This is probably not happening anymore, but I even didn't know that there was fires in Canada going on. So they speak about the safari population and how some people must hunt the lions and must hunt all these animals. Some of them you use them for meat, and the rules actually of safari hunting in Africa. What are the rules? You can kill the animals, but you cannot take the meat. You have to donate it for the villages and stuff, so they have something to eat. That's actually it's a pretty balanced ecosystem, I can see, because apparently they banned killing lions, to protect, in the perspective to protect the animals, but then they started growing in numbers and they were killing too many antelopes and the whole system went out of balance. So actually, since the lions have no predators, then we have to be the predators. And as long, in my opinion, that's just obviously my opinion, as the animals don't get hurt or don't, I don't know, torture or don't suffer, if it's gonna balance the environment, if it's not for evil reasons, then it's necessary. And some guy who likes to hunt also scratches that itch. Well, it's a win-win situation as long as we're doing it for the right reasons. That's just my opinion, of course. They speak also a little bit about fighting, about John Jones' toe that twisted over in one of the fights because he stepped on it so hard. It's fucking crazy how the adrenaline twists his toe completely broken. He didn't even feel it. Then we speak about a little bit about nutrition and healthiness and ice baths a lot. It's explaining, Joe explains the positive side effects of ice baths, and they speak about the praying mantis and the crazy things that the praying mantis does. Apparently, Joe Rogan is a freak on it. I had no idea. So, pretty cool stuff. Some clips about the praying mantis eating hummingbirds. So, all in all, fun, a bit interesting, but mostly fun. So, yeah, I would give it 3.5 notes. Go and check it out. So, and now let's go with the timestamp of this amazing interview with Marc Andreessen. I had no idea who this white guy was. According to the description on the Spotify interview, it says that he co-created Mosaic, which was the very first internet browser, I guess before Alta Vista or whatever, because don't remember this, never heard about it. But the guy's an AI genius and crazy. He's updated with everything, conspiracies. He comes and gives everything straight. I think this is the first time I've seen an interview where people say so serious and throat cutting, super controversial, canceling things without even saying, oh my god, this is gonna get me canceled. Like, he speaks like he would be speaking about, I don't know, the game last night or whatever sport. And he's just cutting throats and revealing some information that I had no idea. Super conspiracy directed, crazy. So yeah, this is gonna be a rough ride. And please, before, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share me. So let's get right to it. So we start with AI right straight. We don't even introduce anybody. It's just like, okay, let's talk about AI. And we talk about what it can do now, the updates, and how does it work with the data input, which data can it take to make conclusions of the things that we ask it. What is true, how can it recognize what is true stories versus what is fiction stories. If you ask, does it think Harry Potter is real and that there's wizards flying around? So for example, these kind of things. So how does it recognize true versus fake? Then it gets political, the conversation, and the situation where if you ask it opinion about Biden, it says something nice, and opinions about Trump, he says something not nice. This kind of bias and censorship, and well, this is actual censorship, and they speak about AI censorship a lot, of course, and how we can use actually AI for training the politicians instead of instead of censor it. They speak about the news as well and how we can start using AI for news instead of newspapers and stuff. We can just ask, hey, what happened in this thing, and also he tells us the way that we can actually take that filter of bias away. If we could just talk to it and say, hey, tell me the news about what happened yesterday in this whatever situation. Then it tells you the news, hey, but don't be so emotional, give me unbiased information. And then you start filtering it like that, and then just give me the facts. And then at the end, you're gonna get just facts, even if it hurts, no emotions, no biases. And also you can, actually it's interesting, you could type, give me the news, as if a right winger would listen to it. And then they write on the right wing side and with biases. Is pretty interesting and open-minding, the things that, even though it's always been possible since ChatGPT, but you have these new ideas of what you can actually do. It's like, holy shit, yeah, it's pretty deep, pretty cool. So they speak about the news. They talk a lot. They start talking about UFOs, and if UFOs maybe it's just now that all of this is happening now, Joe, he's skeptical. He's saying, well, if the government has some, or is working on some kind of super crazy new spaceship technology, they would want us to think that it's a UFO just so they can hide it. So this motherfucker is great. Finally, when something nice is happening with UFOs that he's been waiting for years, he doesn't believe it. So, well, it's the mind of a skeptic, I guess that makes kind of sense. We've been disappointed before about the government lying, so I don't think he's completely wrong not believing or not trusting. They speak about MK Ultra, and a lot of conspiracies in general, current cults, the cults that are actually right now, not only stories on cults, and conspiracies with cults and history of cults, the moon landing, crazy shit, a lot of these kind of conspiracies, and videos that didn't exist during the Cold War just to make the others scared. Is crazy. Then they talk about AI and weapons of mass destruction. In the case that we have to control AI, who's gonna be the censor? Who's gonna be the controller of this? They speak about that. Who has the power? Who's supposed to have the power to control AI? And the Twitter files. And they speak about the current AI market, the big four companies that are now leading on AI. And they speak about regulating it as well. Then they go to the philosophical question: can AI take over? And the interesting view of the way that AI can take over is if it has consciousness. His argument is AI could never take over because it doesn't have consciousness. And we say, well, it can develop it, but we don't even know what consciousness is. With ourselves, we don't have the science or the definition or even any kind of data on how consciousness comes to be. We're just born with it, basically. So how can a machine just get out of her logical code that's been written and develop spontaneous consciousness? I see his point, and now I'm a little bit actually more at ease because of this information. And okay, maybe the robots are not taking over. Actually, I see his point now. I can see completely where he's coming from, and it's true. It's true. How would a machine just suddenly develop consciousness? Just why? Just because he thinks, or it thinks it's doing the best for us, because we're destroying ourselves. Like they don't think this way. They don't have this kind of consequence. Oh, they're destroying themselves, so we better kill them or whatever. So I see his point, 100%. China, they speak a lot about China, and are we free compared to China? Because we say that China is actually a communism when it's actually a capitalism, and they have all these rules, and they are very censored, and they are very limited on what websites they can see and everything. And they're comparing that to the West. How much things we have in common, more than we thought. We're getting slowly, very dangerously close, and nobody's even noticing because they're doing it step by step. We speak about the Christian philosophy, and very interesting, something that I thought I would never hear, a discussion about the positive side of nuclear weapons. Apparently, having nuclear weapons saved lives. It's a very interesting argument. I'm not saying I support it, but it's actually very interesting to hear something positive about nuclear weapons. Then they talk about the AI that's happening with images, how you can just create art out of AI creating art according to what you tell it. And of course, about the rights, how art is gonna be developed from now on, and everything that's happening with that controversy. And we finish with Neuralink, how Neuralink is already being developed to the point where it can read already images. It can pull out images out of your brain. If you're imagining the image, you're imagining something, it brings the image into a digital screen. Pretty impressive. So yeah, this is the interview. It's really amazing. The quote of the week comes out of this interview. I definitely recommend you to check it out 100%. It's 4.5 knots at least, maybe even 5. No, but let's keep it at 4.5. 5 is sort of special. So yeah, 100% check it out. So, and that is a wrap for another JRE in a nutshell. Thank you very much for checking out my episode, my channel, for following me, for sharing me, for all that cool shit. Don't forget to stay until the end, and I will see you next week, guys. Peace.
I get maybe the picture I leave you with. You mentioned the 20-year-old who has grown up having had this technology the whole time and having had all their questions answered. I think there's actually something even deeper. The AI. Like the AI that my 8-year-old is going to have by the time he's 20, it's going to have had 12 years of experience with him. So it will have grown up with him.
Be a good life coach.
Yes. It will know everything he's ever done. It will know everything he ever did well. It will know everything he did that took real effort. It will know what he's good at. It will know what he's not good at. It'll know how to teach him. It'll know how to correct for his, whatever limitations he has. It'll know how to maximize his strengths.